The fires of Mount Doom had barely cooled since the last Great War, but trouble in Middle-earth never truly ended. For centuries, dark whispers had spread across the land, a prophecy that foretold the return of the Dark Lord. Some believed it was nonsense, others trembled in fear. Yet no one was prepared for what actually happened. In the depths of Mordor, a secret chamber had remained sealed for thousands of years. It was here that Sauron, the Dark Lord himself, had hidden his true armor. Not just any armor, but the one infused with his essence, power, and unmatched terror. The one that, when worn, would declare the return of Middle-earth's greatest villain. Unfortunately, a minion got there first. It had all started with a mix-up at Barad-dûr. A group of minions, small and yellow, had accidentally wandered into Mordor after mistaking it for a super-secret villain hideout, which, in fairness, it was. They were supposed to deliver a crate of bananas to an unknown customer, but had instead taken a wrong turn past the dead marshes. In their confusion, one particularly clumsy minion, let's call him Kevin, tumbled down a long, spiraling staircase and crashed straight into the ancient vault. It was pitch dark. Dust and old spells filled the air. Kevin, barely able to see, tripped over a pile of ancient scrolls and landed face first into something metal. With a deep, eerie clang, Sauron's helmet fell onto Kevin's head. For a moment, there was silence. Then something shifted. A pulse of ancient, trapped magic rippled through the room. The air grew cold. The shadows trembled. Mordor had awoken. Kevin staggered out of the vault, now wearing Sauron's helmet, which was far too big for his small, round head. The eye slits glowed ominously, filling the room with a terrifying red light. Unfortunately, Kevin could barely see through it. Meanwhile, across Mordor, the Orcs felt the shift in power. Their Dark Lord had returned. From the fortress of Barad-dûr, the Uruk-hai stood at attention. In the black depths of Mount Doom, fire demons roared in celebration. Across Gorgoroth, messengers hurried to spread the news. Sauron had risen again. Kevin, however, had no idea what was going on. As he stumbled outside, a sea of orcs, trolls, and wraiths fell to their knees. They chanted, they screamed, they pledged their eternal loyalty. Kevin, overwhelmed by the sheer number of creatures bowing before him, did what minions do best. He panicked. In an attempt to steady himself, he waved his tiny hands in the air. Unfortunately, to the orcs, this looked like a dramatic display of dark sorcery. 1,000 warriors cheered in terror and awe. In the depths of the Banana Realm, an absurdly cursed prison where the real Sauron had been trapped due to an ancient spell, the true Dark Lord screamed in rage. He had waited centuries for his return, only for a tiny yellow creature to steal his throne. And worst of all, the orcs loved him. Kevin, now the accidental ruler of Mordor, had absolutely no idea what was happening. He was still trying to figure out why he couldn't see properly when a massive Uruk-hai general stomped forward, pounded his chest, and barked something in black speech. Kevin naturally responded with, "Banana." The orcs fell dead silent. For a moment, even the fires of Mount Doom flickered in confusion. Then, as if receiving some divine dark wisdom, the general nodded solemnly. "Banana!" The entire army chanted, raising their weapons. From the cursed lands of Gorgoroth to the twisted towers of Minas Morgul, the cry spread. Mordor had a new war cry. Meanwhile, in the Banana Realm, the real Sauron, still trapped inside his fruit-shaped prison, was foaming with rage. He had seen many betrayals in his time. His ring had been cut from his hand. His fortress had been overrun. His armies had been scattered. But this was the worst. Sitting in a prison made entirely of enchanted bananas, Sauron watched through the cursed vision of his old helmet as his once mighty armies now paraded around their new Dark Lord, like a tiny, adorable overlord. The Uruk-hai were painting their shields yellow. The ring-wraiths were learning minion gibberish. The great war drums of Mordor now sounded like upbeat party music. And worst of all, they were happy. Sauron had spent thousands of years ruling through fear, pain, and misery. And now, a small yellow creature, had accidentally accomplished more unity in Mordor in 5 minutes than he had in 5 centuries. Sauron screamed and pounded his fists against his banana bars, but the magical fruit absorbed his rage like a sponge. The enchantment was clear. He was trapped until Kevin willingly removed the helmet. But as Sauron watched, Kevin wasn't even trying. In fact, Kevin was having the time of his life. Back in Mordor, under Kevin's rule, Mordor was changing fast. The eye of Sauron had been repainted into the eye of Kevin, complete with a smiley face. The Orcs, now loyal to their small, gibberish-speaking overlord, were building banana statues across the Black Lands. The dark, evil banners of Barad-dûr were replaced with ones that simply read, Bellow, in ancient runes. Even the Nazgul, the terrifying wraiths of legend, had been forced to trade their terrifying black robes for minion overalls. Kevin, completely unaware of what any of this meant, was currently trying to ride a war troll like a pony. For the first time in history, Mordor was thriving, which meant, of course, the armies of Middle-earth were preparing for war. From Minas Tirith to Rivendell, rumors spread of Sauron's return. The elves prepared their arrows, the dwarves sharpened their axes, and the humans, believing darkness had risen again, began to gather an army for the final battle. Mordor was stronger than ever. And the worst part? Nobody knew their new Dark Lord was just a minion who really, really liked bananas. Across Middle-earth, the great kingdoms had prepared for war. Elven scouts had reported that Sauron's armies were marching once more. The dwarves, eager for battle, had begun forging warhammers and drinking an unreasonable amount of ale. The humans, led by brave generals, stood ready for what they believed would be the final war against darkness. What none of them knew, however, was that Mordor was no longer a place of nightmares. It was a theme park of chaos. Inside Barad-dûr, Kevin, the accidental Dark Lord of Mordor, was currently hosting a talent show for his orcs. A particularly enthusiastic goblin had just performed an interpretive dance about lava, and the Uruk-hai general was getting ready to juggle severed heads, which Kevin assumed were coconuts. Meanwhile, the Nazgul, the terrifying, soul-draining ringwraiths, were being forced to rehearse a synchronized dance routine. "Banana!" roared the orc audience in approval. Kevin clapped, overjoyed. This was the best job ever. Meanwhile, in the banana realm, Sauron had given up trying to break out of his prison. He was now slumped in a corner, watching as his once feared empire became a circus of minion madness. At first, he had assumed this would crumble into disaster. But no. Kevin had accidentally united Mordor in a way he never could. The orcs were happier, healthier, and more organized. The Nazgul were getting actual hobbies. And Mount Doom had been turned into a massive oven that now produced banana-flavored cookies. Sauron had seen many horrors in his immortal life. But this was true evil. Just as Kevin was about to hand out the Mordor's Got Talent trophy, a massive war horn sounded in the distance. The skies darkened. The air grew heavy. From the mountains of Gondor, the armies of men, elves, and dwarves appeared, marching toward Mordor in full force. Their banners waved in the wind. Their weapons gleamed. They had come to destroy the Dark Lord once and for all. Kevin, holding his tiny trophy, blinked. Then, in true minion fashion, he waved excitedly. The warriors of Middle-earth expected a terrifying, blood-soaked battle. What they got was a complete disaster. The dwarves stormed the gates, only to find orcs offering them banana bread. The elves fired their arrows, but the Nazgul caught them mid-air and used them for archery practice. And the humans, led by their brave general, charged forward with a battle cry, only to see a troll wearing a Hawaiian shirt dancing in the middle of the battlefield. Confusion spread like wildfire. The armies of Middle-earth had trained for centuries to defeat the Dark Lord. They were not prepared for whatever this was. Kevin, meanwhile, had decided to join in on the fun. He climbed onto his trusty war troll and rode toward the enemy, waving a tiny Mordor flag as if he was leading a parade. At that moment, the greatest warriors in all of Middle-earth had to face a terrible, undeniable truth. Mordor had been conquered by a minion, and nobody knew what to do about it. Sauron watched in silence. He had spent thousands of years crafting a world of darkness, cruelty, and power. And now, in the span of a single week, a yellow creature had turned his empire into a magical, banana-powered utopia. Sauron, the Dark Lord of Middle-earth, closed his fiery eyes. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to retire. The armies of Middle-earth stood completely frozen. They had prepared for a legendary battle against the Dark Lord. Instead, they were watching a minion riding a war troll, waving a Mordor flag, and offering them banana bread. The Elven King turned to his most trusted advisor. What is happening? The advisor, staring at a group of Nazgul performing an acrobatic stunt show, could only shake his head. This is beyond our understanding. Kevin, the accidental Dark Lord of Mordor, realized that things were getting a little too serious. The armies of Middle-earth still looked like they wanted to fight, and Kevin did not like fighting. Fighting meant less time for snacks. So, in true minion fashion, he decided to make peace, minion style. He jumped off his war troll, grabbed a megaphone, and proceeded to give the most passionate, heartfelt speech in history. Or at least, that's what he thought he was doing. To everyone else, it was just a series of excited minion gibberish, dramatic hand gestures, and a lot of banana-related words. Be-do, banana tiki mortar bellow, poo-poo, caca. The armies of Middle-earth stared in horror. Was this some kind of dark incantation? A forbidden spell? Was this how Sauron had returned? But before anyone could react in fear, something truly unexpected happened. The orcs, goblins, and even the Nazgul started cheering. They lifted Kevin onto their shoulders, chanting his name. Mordor Banana King! Mordor Banana King! The warriors of Middle-earth watched in stunned silence. The Dark Lord hadn't returned. He had been replaced by a minion. Realizing that their worst fears had not come true, the armies of Middle-earth decided to approach with caution. Instead of bloodshed, they found an entire kingdom of orcs, goblins, and demons happily celebrating their new Banana King. Instead of burning villages, they found Nazgul handing out snacks. Instead of an evil empire, they found a massive festival filled with weird minion inventions. There was no war to be fought here. There was only confusion, madness, and banana cream pie. The Elven King stepped forward. In a voice filled with uncertainty, he declared, "We accept your rule, Banana Lord." And just like that, Middle-earth surrendered to a minion. Meanwhile, in the Banana Realm, Sauron was watching everything unfold. He had once dreamed of dominating Middle-earth, but now Mordor was thriving. His armies were happier. His fortress was stronger than ever. And best of all, the minion was actually doing a better job than him. Sauron sighed. Maybe he had been too focused on fear and destruction. Maybe, just maybe, he needed to embrace the banana. By the end of the day, Middle-earth had been forever changed. The once feared Mordor was now a tourist attraction. The Nazgul had opened a dance academy. The orcs had started a bakery. And the armies of Middle-earth? They had all returned home, utterly confused, but strangely at peace. The war was over. Kevin had accidentally done what no one else in history could do. He had united Middle-earth. And so, the legend of the Banana Lord was born. A tale so ridiculous, so absurd, and yet so unstoppable. And somewhere, deep within the Banana Realm, Sauron closed his eyes. Maybe, just maybe, he would return someday. But for now, he was retiring. And honestly, he was okay with that. Years had passed since the greatest, weirdest, and most unexpected event in Middle-earth's history. The rise of the Banana Lord. What was once a dark, cursed land filled with fire and despair was now a thriving kingdom where orcs ran smoothie stands, goblins became fashion designers, and the terrifying Nazgul had opened the first-ever minion-run amusement park. It was a time of peace, prosperity, and complete nonsense. But deep in the shadows, a single dark presence remained. Sauron. In his banana-shaped prison, Sauron had spent years plotting his escape. He had trained his mind. He had mastered patience. He had whispered dark prophecies into the void. And at last, after centuries of waiting, or maybe just a few months, It was hard to tell in the banana realm. The time had come. The banana walls cracked, the sky trembled, and with a burst of darkness, Sauron was free, right into the middle of a banana festival. The orcs and goblins barely noticed his arrival. They were too busy cheering for their banana lord, who was in the middle of unveiling his latest minion-sized roller coaster. Sauron stormed through the crowd, darkness swirling around him. "I have returned!" he bellowed, expecting screams of terror. Instead, a minion handed him a free banana smoothie. "Bello!" the minion greeted him happily. Sauron blinked. No one was scared. No one was trembling. No one was even paying attention. His glorious return was being completely overshadowed by a banana juggling competition. Fueled by pure rage, Sauron stomped forward, preparing to reclaim Mordor once and for all. But before he could even lift a finger, Kevin, the one, the only, the mighty Banana Lord, turned to face him. And then, Kevin hugged him. The entire kingdom cheered. "Sauron!" the orcs yelled. "You're back! We missed you!" Sauron, completely frozen, felt the unholy warmth of friendship wrapping around him. He expected betrayal. He expected resistance. He did not expect a banquet in his honor. And so, the Dark Lord made a choice. As he sat at a long feast table, surrounded by cheerful minions, giggling orcs, and surprisingly talented goblin musicians, Sauron took a deep breath. Maybe it was the sweet scent of banana pie. Maybe it was the minions excitedly showing him their latest, ridiculously overpowered invention. Or maybe it was the fact that, for the first time in centuries, he didn't actually hate being here. Mordor was no longer a place of darkness and suffering. It was alive. And after years of waiting for revenge, Sauron realized something. He didn't want his old kingdom back. Not because he couldn't take it back. No, he was still the most feared being in Middle-earth. But because, if he was being completely honest with himself, he liked the new Mordor better, the end of an era, or the beginning of a new one. And so, the darkest force to ever exist in Middle-earth retired. Instead of spreading doom, he became the official overlord of entertainment for Mordor's amusement park. Instead of leading orcs into battle, he was teaching them how to make enchanted carnival rides. And instead of trying to reclaim his throne, he let Kevin keep it. After all, the Banana Lord had done something Sauron had never been able to do. He had made Mordor truly unstoppable. Through complete nonsense, a new era of peace and chaos had begun. Middle-earth had never been more confused, and Mordor had never been happier. Some say the Dark Lord still watches over his land. Some say the minions accidentally opened a portal to another dimension. But one thing is for sure. No one ever saw Middle-earth the same way again. And that, my friend, is how a minion accidentally became the most powerful being in history.
If you like this video, then do subscribe to this channel